Legal? Yeah, and then we'll stand for a silent minute.
Thank you, John. We are. Ask your stolen man. There you go.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Can I ask one question? Well, we used to get an agenda, but all of it then, I've got supposed to get an agenda on the scene. We don't get them anymore.
No,
Is that cost effective? You saving money?
we do.
Alright, that's fair enough.
If the agenda is put on the notices downstairs now.
Oh, you want to go downstairs?
Yeah.
Outside.
Very, very hard to read it up here though, isn't it? Not on the seat. It's easier when it's on the seat.
Right, thank you.
Your worship, your worship.
Okay.
Welcome.
Yes, Jerry.
I'm very sorry, but with your accent,
What do you mean by accent? That's
I've
English.
got a terrible job to understand what you're saying sometimes. So if you could really sort of slow down a little bit, it would help me. I know I'm going to hear you.
Right. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you.
Are you well?
That would be
Are you
fine.
doing a good job with the council?
Thank you.
Thank you, welcome.
Hello.
That's
Are
better.
you lovely people?
Okay. Right.
Not better.
So to continue with our business at this chamber, do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, I've got apologies from Councillors Don Francesco, Cook and McDougall
Did you say that?
and Local Bandy.
Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest other than those that are already on our list? To approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting as a correct record, and this is the town hall meeting of the 9th of September. So, any comments on page 26?
Members of the public are leaving, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Sorry, welcome, sorry.
I'll sit up and slow. Thank you very much. We are leaving. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, good night.
Moving on page 27. Page 28. Page 29. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so may I ask a question about the 2030 committee? Because I see that the resolutions are excellent ones in terms about the upgraded phase power and the decarbonisation heating system. But I remember that we were asking planning permission for various decarbonisation programmes to go ahead that needed planning permission. and I was wondering how that was going.
I don't think Melissa gave us a final version of it. She said one of them, there was a planning application that was almost complete, and she was looking for a couple of other either quotes or something like that. Did you have anything updated on that, Colin?
Nothing more than what Melissa has said,
No.
Your Worship. I think it's very nearly there.
So it's very near ready to be submitted.
So no, I thought it had been submitted.
No.
No. So the planning permission is still in process of being submitted. Okay, thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Page 30. Councillor
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one thing, I'm reading through the extra planning committee meeting held on the 3rd of September. It says approval of this application with the condition that the illuminated standalone pole sign is turned off between midnight and 6 p.m. to reduce the impact on the protected view from the tour. Is that going a little bit too far, Your Worship?
Probably.
Yeah.
You said PM.
Oh, I did.
Councillor Cousins.
So, councillors will recall that when Tesco put in their planning application, a similar restriction on their light being turned on at night was approved by Somerset Council. I do believe actually that that came into force earlier in the evening than when we suggested. But there is a precedent for it, and Tesco's is that precedent.
Okay, thank you. Because Tesco's is open until about midnight, isn't it? Okay. Yeah, so all of that one is all to do with that new garage rebuild by the Shell station that B&Q renting out. Anything on page 30? On page 30.
Yeah, can I make a more general comment in that as we go through the different points, it merely says that we were updated or that the statistics were noted or they were considered a correct record or the budget monitoring report was noted. We aren't actually given any information, and I always like with the minutes to keep track of what we're agreeing and what is being said and what is being discussed, so that as we go month by month, I can keep a check on how we're doing and things are moving forward. And I'm afraid that these minutes are so minimal, give so little information that I'm going, I have no idea what we were talking about. It's, because I don't keep it in my memory from month to month. And minutes for me are basically my memory update. And so I make a plea that we actually have a little bit of information in minutes, a bit like we get it with the planning, we get it with the different committees, we get that information, but we don't get it with any of the other things. And it's over the years, it's just been getting pared down and pared down and pared down. It's reached a point where basically they become useless.
Okay, thank you. So can I accept those as a true record tonight, September? And I will
Aye.
No.
Thank you. To receive an update on actions from the last meeting.
The financial regulations have been implemented and the calendar of meetings is ready to be distributed tonight.
Latest crime statistics report, and I presume we have no police again. No, thank you. So we're still the same with that. Violence and
Down
sexual
to it.
offences. Yeah. Unable to prosecute. Any comment? Councillor
The only comment I would make is that there are sort of lower level degrees of crime in the, if you call it a crime, people swearing and screaming, as they are this evening, on the market cross, which you could put 1,000 events for every single month of home without any problem at all. And so you can get a slightly optimistic picture when you just look at numbers of very specific arrestable events.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Cousins?
Thank you, Your Worship. I wonder if we could look at the crimes by outcome statistics, and the ones for the last 3 years are available on this chart. I wonder if we could ask for more details on the outcome where someone has been to court and there is a court result that is available. It seems to me that there's an awful lot of unavailable or awaiting, but there doesn't seem to be any solid outcome from any of the crimes under investigation. Is it just me, or does that appear to be the case? I wonder whether we could find some statistics about whether or not anyone has been charged and brought to court and had an outcome where they've been fined or whatever happens, so that we know whether or not this is a situation where, because if you look at this report, it almost looks as if everyone gets up.
Councillor Henderson.
We've got a GCCR meeting coming up in a week or something like that, so we could definitely bring that up. And we do always mention these figures and how inadequate they are, so I think we'll just keep pushing with that. That's a pretty good point.
I think it'd be very useful to have figures on crime prevention. In other words, could we have figures once a month of how many police hours have been spent in the high street of Glastonbury, just walking up and down, and have it sectioned between what day of the week it was, and weekends, particularly weekends, can be troublesome. So crime prevention, all for it, and we'd like to see some figures, please.
They are capturing those data now, so Sergeant has it. And so with 3 strands of new policing, he's even noting if an officer gets accompanied to another town in how many hours, so they're now doing that on a daily basis. Thank you. Very good. Right, so that one was just to note. To consider and approve the schedule of payments. So I hope you will see these.
Thank you, Your Worship. Comparison 6083, which is the I think it's 6083. The electricity for Beckery Old Road.
Right, I've just asked about that, and that is the skate park for the floodlights.
Oh, right. Okay.
I asked this morning.
But then you go down to 6153, and it says £47.93. So from 1,632, it goes down to 47 or 48 pounds. So I don't see the comparison on that.
Well, it's all within the month of October, so it can't be month on month thing.
One would think not, but I can only comment on what I see.
So, which one are you particularly concerned with?
6083.
Yeah, that one is the skate park.
And 6153.
6153.
Second from the bottom.
6153.
Chair, it says August, Chair, sorry, it says August 25th.
Yeah.
So it must be something outstanding maybe from August 25. Must be something outstanding from August maybe.
Thanks, cousins.
Well, I'm just wondering whether or not it is a misprint. You could ask whether.
No, it says 6083 was July.
Yes, but the difference is the amount of money. Is it possible that it could? So that's what I think we need to ask a question about that. This has been.
Well, I think in terms of what it is, it's monthly, because this is an item that appears in other schedules of payments. I just wanted to look at another one, and it was about £100 for February, which is a time of year when there will be a lot of lighting used. You'd imagine, if anything, within August it should really be paid. So that it definitely is, I think, as I say, typo is the most likely explanation, but yeah.
But it just doesn't seem to compute for me. 1608 is 32 down to 48 quid. So that's what I'm confused on that. Your worship.
Just to come back, I think the question to ask the responsible finance officer is it an error of original entry?
Have you got a note of that?
That's Katie.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
All going.
Got it.
Thank you. Sorry. Anything else on that one? No. And on its second page. Okay. I presume that was approved. I was to receive the budget monitoring report. So there's some notes for these as well. 8 notes. I did note on that on note number 2, the town clerk has earned us a bonus by recommending Peninsula to the council. So thank you for that. Is that the same thing?
Can we scroll down?
Could we pause the meeting and see that? So I note that obviously the information centre is not at home, as it were, it's abroad. But do we expect the fact that we've been moved into a small hall to have had an influence on these figures? Do they relate favourably or not with last year's figures when perhaps or the figures that we had perhaps when the operations were in the other place, as it were? Or do we feel that this is an acceptable amount of income and expenses in relation to our operation there? I wonder whether that is something that perhaps is not for this committee, for the full council to review, but I'm wondering which committee that could be looked at, because I'm sort of slightly concerned by the 16 grand that we seem to be requiring, and I don't know how we get it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, are you looking at total GMC?
Income less expenditure, bottom line. So I just wonder whether how does that get reviewed by the council, or where does that get reviewed by?
Thank you. On that point, Councillor Cousins, I think the best place, I know the Services Committee have this on their agenda, or an update from the GIC on their agenda. Just in terms of how far we are through the year, you've probably got about 40% of the year still to go. So we're only just over halfway through a financial year. So those figures don't necessarily worry me if income stays at the same level through the winter as it did through the summer. Now that is something we're only going to know at the end of the year. I don't think the move to the small bore has massively negatively affected it. It could only potentially affect it that there's potentially less room for stock to be on display for purchase. But I think just on the other two red figures there for national insurance and superannuation, which is the pension, the only reason they're showing an overspend is because we didn't actually budget them in a detailed way. You'll probably find at the end of the year there'll be a roughly equivalent underspend in wages and salaries for the cost for NI and pension. I think it all just got lumped in for this year in this with the change to the new accounting software. Michelle is going to change that for next year. Those figures at the moment don't worry me, but the Services Committee is obviously going to keep an eye on them, and we're hoping with its new home in St Dunstan's House when we move back, that performance will be even better in the future. It's a much better space.
Thank you.
I was going to say about the time of year.
Those St Dunstan's House ones, that's going to be the room hire charges for all of those different ones, so we can do that.
So that obviously won't get near budget, Chair, because that was budgeted as if we were running it for an entire year. So it will only be a proportion of that, but then the expenditure should also only be a proportion of what was budgeted, and it sort of evens out in the end.
Yeah, with regard to point number 4, the Climate Emergency Group Resilience Group, I talked with the Responsible Finance Officer personally, because she asked me she wanted to remember what it was I asked about, and it was about the fact that we made the leaflets for the flood prevention and river protection, which people will probably remember we did those leaflets. And at the time it was agreed that the money for them would come out of the underspend on the previous 2 years, which would cover them. And that was going to be rolled forward to cover the cost of them. Instead, it's been taken out of this year's budget, and she agreed with me that that was incorrect. And that she will actually seek to correct that and bring forward the money from the previous years when it wasn't spent. It would cover the cost of the leaflets because they weren't supposed to come this year's budget. And I remember it being agreed at the council and it being talked about and where the money would come from and so on. And I've got a clear memory of that, even if it's not written in the minutes. I like Steve's smile. But yeah, so we had that discussion, and so this is incorrect.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Evans?
So, how are reserves that are open to use in this year presented in these income and expenditure accounts? Because that's clearly giving sort of not a false but a slightly wrong impression if there is money to cover it, but it's not income. So is there a balance brought forward in the ledger?
From the committees I've been on, where they've had their own budgets, you get a detailed budget in that committee, and it shows ring-fenced funds that are carried forward from others.
Is it at all relevant that they're not referred to within this document?
They're shown as appropriations, so later on page 6, there are a couple of appropriations into the project budget for town improvements and for the town deal. So that's how money brought in from reserves shows in the accounts. In terms of a summary of earmarked reserves, it's not provided on the budget monitoring report because it's not strictly budget monitoring, but we can ask the finance officer to give an update on earmarked reserves for next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6572, Market Cross, and the note saying over budget due to no subsidy from Somerset Council called webcam. Did they used to give us money for that?
No, so it wasn't Somerset Council, Your Worship. There was a person locally who used to pay half of the cost of the webcam, and they could no longer afford to do so. So they said either the town council could pay the entire bill, or we'd have to change how we do it, or it'd have to be turned off. So that's basically what happened. The person who was part subsidising it as a choice could no longer afford to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Worship, could we? No. I just wondered if we could go and scroll up a little bit to see the income from the car park before the expense.
Is this what to be voted, or is it just listening?
Just for noting.
Okay. Duly noted. Item 8, to receive an update on asset and service devolution from Somerset Council.
Things moving along. We've started work on the playground. We've received the full inspection for each playground, which myself and the 2 members of staff that look after the playgrounds will be going through shortly. And I believe other things are moving along. We've received some paperwork from Somerset Council, which will move us into the next stage of on moving things along. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard. I
Councillor
just noted that one of the members of staff was in the pouring rain cutting the grass the other day, which was rather unfortunate for him and for anybody else standing close by. It didn't make a real good job of the grass cutting. I just wondered whether we've come to a point now where we've done our final cut for the year on all the extra pieces of grass that were taken on board.
Yes, I believe we have.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay. Receive and note the external auditor report and certificate.
Item 9.
Oh, sorry. Oh, and that goes on to Nelson House Health and Wellbeing Centre. Who would like to do that, thank you?
You, your worship,
Okay, thank you. Well, some of you certainly will know that last Friday afternoon we did a formal opening of next door. It's still a little bit of work to go, not very much. We expect the porter cabins to go on the 24th, which is a week Friday, and we expect to get the building back on the 27th, which is a week on Monday. So, anyway, those of you who had a look around, I'm sure you've been quite impressed. If you saw the rolling photographs that the town clerk put on the television screen and realised just how dastardly state it was in the beginning, you might go, wow. One comment Paul Manning had been asked was about why the lights were on, and so they're being load tested, so it's left on all the time. Then they'll get signed off. The building actually will have a complete building control system. So in the next week or so, all of that will be turned on, monitor everything. The atrium windows will be sort of open themselves on actuators if it gets too hot. There's underfloor heating in there. The building itself has 2 heat pumps, so it should be a very well maintained, functional, very pleasant building. Councillor Matter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Absolutely excellent. It's a superb place to be. I wish some of our neighbours would take a leaf from our book because what I see is super. Having said that, presumably we will now be having too many updates on the St Dunstan's house. So will we be having updates on the Beckery building? Because I noticed there is work going on down there today and yesterday.
Do you have an update on that one?
Any updates will go to the Global Committee, Property and Assets, of anything that we're doing at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, the external auditor's report and certificate. Now there's a copy of this down on the notice board. Is that this one that's on there?
Yes.
On the board outside the town. Councillor Cousins.
Your Worship, before we move on to this item, I wonder whether, to be actually explicitly noted in the minutes, whether this council could formally give a vote of thanks to the clerk and the town council team, and Jack Cross particularly, and all the people that have been involved in the creation of St Dunstan's House, that we formally recognise that within the minutes of this council. I propose that.
Seconded.
Thank you. And all those in favour? Thank you, everybody. Unanimous. Thank you. you know if the bit about the fixed assets register, has that been resolved?
Yes, it has been resolved.
Thank you.
Point of order, is this for voting or for
It
voting?
is for noting, to receive and note. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Item 11, to approve the change of administrator for the town council's member credit union account. I'll give you that, just so it doesn't get lost. Yes. Serendipitous, no doubt.
Point of order, Your Worship.
House Cousins.
Can members of the credit union, of which I am one, vote on this?
Yes.
So the reason we need to change the administrator on the account is currently still Jane, former responsible finance officer who's now retired. So Michelle requested a statement from the credit union, and they obviously highlighted that Michelle is not Jane. So we're asking the council, please, to propose that Jane be removed from the credit union account, and that Michelle, our new responsible finance officer, be added.
Okay. Councillor,
I propose we do what Connor eloquently suggested.
Yeah. Councillor Price, second. Is that right? All those in favour of putting Michelle as our new removing Jane? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you.
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Any against?
Sorry?
Any against?
No.
And any abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. One abstention. Thank you. My apologies. Okay, the next one is.
I'm just wondering, while we're on the amended credit union, Malcolm was asking that some sort of acknowledgement and celebration of 25 years good work, which has benefited so many people in the town for the past 25 years. And is there something that we could maybe, together with Malcolm, put together? I don't know. Maybe that's for the Arts Events Committee to maybe talk with Malcolm about and see whether there's something, because it really has been of great benefit to the town and great service to the town.
This is a good place.
Could that be taken on?
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Item 12, to review and adopt a new equality policy.
12. So for this one, staffing committee has adopted this for a staff handbook. However, that's not relevant for working with members of the public, and we are looking for some councillors to have a look at, to redraft it so that it is suitable for the public. So if we could form a group of councillors to look at the document that was adopted at staffing and make something that is relevant for working with members of the public.
So on that, you're still going to have the staff handbook as it is.
Yes.
You just want one for the public.
Yes.
Okay. So any councillors who would like to join the working group or to look at that equality policy? Councillor Osborne?
That's Councillor Osborne, Councillor Price.
Yeah. Did you have your hand up, Councillor Much? Or Councillor?
Thank you. I was just going to suggest maybe we take a number of the staffing committee.
Councillor Cousins?
Well, whilst I hear what Councillor might have said that the staff committee has clearly put it to the full council.
Yeah.
I think that if it was a task and finish route, I would be happy to be involved, but I'm not sure I can make many meetings from them.
Yeah. I imagine it's going to be fairly quick because if it's going to be based on the staff handbook, the documents are pretty much already there.
I agree with Worship.
So would you like to be on it?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
Councillor Cousins, did you want to be on it? Yeah. So you've got what for?
Got councillors Osborne, Price and Cousins.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that enough? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 13 is review and adopt a new safeguarding policy. So it's a several page document. 6 pages. Councillor Cousins.
Your Worship, has there been any change in safeguarding legislation that has meant that we needed to update this document? And if so, which parts of the document are the relevant bits of it?
I do believe the council's never had a safeguarding policy in the past, so actually this is an adoption of a brand new policy for the council. But it was drafted, I believe, by Ellie. So I don't know if you have any particular questions, whether you might want to direct them toward the operational lead for St. Dunstan's House.
Well, I'm slightly shocked that we haven't got a safeguarding policy before this. In the old days, councils used to say, we're just formalising, if you recall, Count Anson, when they didn't have a policy. So I guess we're formalising this. I'd like to send thanks to Ellie for drawing this up for us.
You need to vote on this one?
Yes, please. I'm proposing a seconder. Just on that point, the council hasn't really particularly ever needed a safeguarding policy in the past. It didn't enter into any regulated contact with children or what one might say vulnerable adults, particularly with the development of St. Dunstan's House next door. That has the opportunity to change, but also with the new youth council, the council needs this policy. So it's more that the operations of the council have changed to the point where we now need one. We haven't needed one in the past. So that just addresses that comment.
I propose that we've got any problems with the policy that we adopt this document.
Just one thing. How long does a DBS check last for? Should it be done annually?
So there is, when you sign up to have a DBS check, there is an annual update service that you can sign up to, and then the clerk will, the designated person will go in every year and just check to see if there have been any updates or any information that needs to be reported from that, taken from that.
So what I did with Town Council a few years ago, that is now not relevant.
If you're not on the update service and it hasn't been updated for some time, different organisations have different lengths of time as they wish to fit. So I'm not sure what that DBS was for.
It was enhanced, I think.
Yeah, if it was several years ago, it probably
Yeah,
would need updated. Yeah, if you were working with vulnerable adults and children.
Thank you.
Okay. So I
just had a quick question.
Yeah.
I noticed that our clerk will become the designated safeguard lead, and I was wondering what training our clerk will be receiving in order to fulfil that duty and responsibility.
So I've had training granted it within a previous role. I've had safeguarding children and working with vulnerable adults training when I was with the Football Association. I haven't had any refreshers whilst I've been at Glastonbury Town Council. I do hold a number of DBSs because different organisations need you all to have a DBS. So I've got several DBSs. But that's something that I think the staffing committee could have a look at.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so that needs to be updated.
Yeah. Can we put that on the next staffing agenda, please? So let's look at DBSs. Yeah. Councillor Cousin? Councillor Osborne.
on recruitment and vetting, I would like that somewhat strengthened to say that not just getting that people's entire CVs are checked. I forget what they call it. When you apply for a job, it's not just getting the
References?
not just the references, but they go back over the whole CV to check that it adds up.
Okay.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah, so some sort of scrutiny or
Triangulation.
Thank you. Councillor Cousins?
So so if we could go down to that vetting section again, where it's gone.
Section 8.
Yeah. I think there's great emphasis on the safety of the DBS check. There's a little bit like having an MOT on the car. It's only relevant on that date when you put the back wheels back on. So I think we need to say, in line with current legislation, DBS checks will be undertaken and reviewed. Because not everybody will be in a situation where they'll be working with vulnerable people, however, any age, that requires DBS check. There's quite strict legislation around what work you actually do with those vulnerable people and your regular contact. It requires that. And because the DBS checks looks at spent convictions, etc., we have to be careful that we don't break the law in making people have DBS checks who don't need them.
Sure.
I wonder whether that rather than DBS checks will be undertaken for all new staff, it should say for staff working with vulnerable and children.
My suggestion, Your Worship, was in line with current legislation, and then we will always be in line with what the barring organisation suggests is correct.
May not always say specifically in legislation who you know what I mean? Sometimes that's on the organisations sometimes have to make those decisions. But
Councillor
The question really, just following on from that, Dunstan's House, the caretakers from the town hall might need to go in from there from time to time. Well, they will need to have DBS checks because they could bump into vulnerable people and children in the course of their work.
Rest my case, Your Worship, that would not constitute needing a DBS check, although people think it should. But it would be asking somebody to disclose any spent convictions who doesn't need to in law would be us creating criminal offence. We have to be very careful.
Yeah.
so it needs to be proportionate. We need to be asking the right people for the right information at the right time. So that's why we should maybe think about that wording there before we whether it should be legislation or whether it should maybe we need to think a little bit more about the wording.
Okay. Councillor Smith?
I was going to suggest, Your Worship, the addition of the words that Councillor Cousins used, because that seems to be that would cover everything that we've discussed on the letter.
So,
what do you think, Ellie?
So it's good to hear your suggestions. Obviously, this is something that's in draft form, so I'm pleased to hear the feedback of the council. I think the suggestions are sensible and merited. So I can go back and re-elaborate this with the guidance of Councillor Cousins, perhaps Councillor Price, to have that guidance from the council itself during the writing of it.
okay. So you're happy to bring this back to next month, Council?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. And the next one is another very nice document, I presume also written by you, which is to review and adopt a code of conduct for St Dunstan's House Community Health and Wellbeing Centre. So very similar, but I thought it was quite good, actually.
I don't know whether Your Worship you would like to ask anything about an overview.
Okay. Yeah, please. Yeah.
So the sort of premise behind this document is to establish obviously a code of conduct between all of those within the building. This will be signed, hopefully, if approved, by all practitioners, as we will be calling them, that use the space, as well as staff
just to ensure that we are safeguarding staff and practitioners and the public as best as we can. And also it's just quite a nice document to have from the ethos point of view to establish our stance on important things like safeguarding, safety, and sort of our professional and sort of personal expectations of the use of the space and those that use it.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Cousins?
Thank you very much. It's very refreshing to see a document not only very current with thinking, but also it's clearly from somebody who's educated in this part of the world, likely to see the Oxford Comma being used. But there are parts of this document referring to ways of behaving professionally that are very on trend or current. And I am mindful that we might need to look at training some of our staff around sort of current practices and standards required, just so that they don't inadvertently fall foul of some of these standards that we're now going to enforce. I'm not thinking of any stuff in particular, but I'm just conscious that if we set a rule and we set a standard, as Solomon would say, we need to make sure it's something that people will actually be able to fulfill.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just like to scroll to the end. Please, Katie.
That is the end.
Yeah, thank you. In that case, may I suggest that would it be appropriate to put any references in there to any particular legislation or any references to anything that we've used to construct this document?
Yeah, so I would suggest that a code of conduct isn't something that we are legally obligated to have. From my research, because it's not particularly my area in terms of policy, but from my research, it's not a binding document that we are required to have. So this is something that I have pulled together from my research and my own personal ethos for the building. So I would not potentially be able to supply references in that regard.
I should imagine it's kind of like when we have to adhere to no limits, that sort of thing, isn't it? But I wonder whether we want something separate than for, whether we need something that is for staff and something that is for practitioners coming in. And I agree with Councillor Cousins, for our staff, if we're asking them to behave in a certain way, we need to make sure they have the right training around that, so equality and diversity or whatever that might be. I think that's going to be harder with practitioners coming in. We would assume that most of those practitioners would have up-to-date training around those things, but that's going to be harder for us to, I don't know if police is the right word, it's going to be harder for us to assess. So perhaps we should think about a code of conduct. I think for people coming in and using one of our spaces is a really, really good idea, but perhaps we do separate them out and have something for staff.
Okay, so would the suggestion be for this document to be amended so the mention of staff is removed for now, and we create a new one? Yeah.
So I think that seems reasonable.
I also feel that if we are going to be improving or formalising our standards here to those that most of the general public would expect of this place, that we should leave our general custody from the front and adopt a code of conduct ourselves as a council with appropriate training around diversity, etc., for all councillors for this place. Just so that we are not asking anyone else to do something that we're not prepared to do.
What exactly was the proposal?
That
That we get set up on training classes.
the council has we of course all abide by the known principles, but code of conduct is slightly different. And if this type of code of conduct is requiring people to understand some very nuanced things such as diversity, etc. And I think that we should lead by example, and therefore we ourselves should receive this sort of training so that we are the model of a very perfect council. And I would propose that we do that.
Councillor Smythe will second that. And all those in favour of doing what he said? Thank you.
Perhaps somebody can come here rather than us.
Yes, very well, very good. Any against? And any abstentions? Two abstentions. Thank you. So carried by majority. To receive an up.
Sorry. Oh. We haven't actually adopted the content, you just need to do something else. We need to approve the content.
Okay. So, Councillor Cousins.
I propose with the word staff removed so that that can be looked at by the staffing committee that we adopt this code of conduct.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, do you second it? Thank you. And all those in favour of adopting a code of conduct? Thank you. No, this is St Dunstan's House code of conduct.
So we've already done the safeguarding.
Yeah.
We have a working group on the safeguarding.
Yeah. So all those in favour of adopting this? Thank you. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And the next one is an update on the Glastonbury War Book.
Yes, so that is that document there. Mary Carriage has completed the war book, which will eventually live in St Dunstan's GIC when it moves. We have it in our office currently so that it doesn't get lost in between that moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole bunch of more pages in here. It's been very kindly dedicated to the memory of Nick Coppell, a well-liked and non-serving councillor in Glastonbury. And then the front page, Mary Claridge has given an update to September 2025. So I suggest people avail themselves of it as they wish. Thank you. And thanks to Mary Claridge for that. Okay. Item 16, to consider commissioning a report into the Town Hall stone frontage and to identify any work required in time for budget setting. I've had a discussion with the town clerk about this, and I'm mindful about what happened allegedly with the boiler, so when the Town Hall boiler failed, and the previous councils had known about it and not set any money aside for it. If you look at the front of the Town Hall at the moment, you'll see that several of the stones are degrading, starting to fall to pieces, all the rest of it. So rather than find us or a future council in a situation where major work needs doing, what I thought was that it might be worthwhile finding a stonemason, asking them to do a survey and sort of writing a report to us to say this is what needs doing, this is how urgent different bits are, and roughly how much it might cost and how long it might take. Did you have anything to add to that, Carmen?
I do, yes. So what we're looking for is for some town hall staff to contact some stonemasons for quotes and commission the work within budget for the town hall. If that's
really, I thought if we get that done sooner, if we could do it in this financial year, then yes, and if not, we could think of information. As man.
Just to understand that, if we're just looking at something to get indicative pricing, we don't really need to go out to 3 lots of stonemasons. We just give one thank you and say how much would it cost.
Any other thoughts on that?
Just a point of clarity. What we're talking about is commissioning a report on the front of the building that will give us an idea of then what
What
legal
we
action
might
would
need
be
to say.
taken. And I understand that that's been suggested we don't need to quote, but isn't that dependent on how much the report will cost?
That's a good point as well. Okay. Well, we can try either way, but if there are 3 stonemasons or people who are willing to do it, then we can go down that road. But it just feels like we've still got a few months of this financial year going, and then also we've got finance and general purposes later in the year, November, December. So we've got some idea if it can fit inside this time. Thank you.
What I'm hoping the council will do is to authorise to me in conjunction with the office to go out and have a look at how much will a report cost, get one done and get an idea for budget setting for next year of how much it might cost to have this kind of work done. Because it might be that we have to budget for it over a number of years rather than do it all in one go. So all I need is you to authorise to me to go out and get that report created within the budget that we have for town hall maintenance.
Yeah.
And then I'll bring that information forward for budget setting, how much work we think the frontage of this building needs, because it is a bit like the boiler. The council's talked about it for a long time, not put any money aside. Had a report done many years ago, but we're well out of date now because quite a few more stones have started crumbling. So that's what I'm hoping you will do. That's what I want. Not to have the work actually done, but to figure out how much work needs to be done and how much that might cost.
Thank you. So, Councillor Collins. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Joe. Presumably we had stonemason work on Market Cross a couple of years ago. Were we happy with that person's work? Do we like them? They might be somebody we could approach as we've used them in the past.
So as the clerk rightly says, I think it was 2012 when a previous survey was done. Could we make this available to whoever is doing the new report so that they don't have to reinvent parts of it?
Yes. So, is there a proposer and a second to authorise the town clerk to go and find somebody to do the report? Councillor Knight.
Yeah, I'll propose it.
You're proposing, Councillor Knight is seconding. All those in favour of having the report done? And unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 17, resolutions of delegated committees.
Your Worship.
Yes, councillors.
In relation to the Arts, Culture and Events Committee meeting, that I note that members considered recommendations to the Finance and General Purposes Committee. Does that recommendation by the Arts, Culture and Events Committee need, or any of them, need any ratification from the full council before going to Finance and General Purposes, or do they automatically just go to Finance and General Purposes?
The latter, they just
Yeah,
go.
they just go. So when we do financial purposes, it's just a budget line.
So the point 2 from the Arts and Culture Committee, the suggestion for a full-time communications officer was raised at that committee, and I think in some ways there was a lot of merit within. Sorry.
Sorry.
A lot of merit within that suggestion. The full council considers appointing full-time communications officer.
Well, we've got a different route now, and so staff have looked at having a sort of part-time or temporary on a
I don't know what you just said there. Would you mind?
I
It might be you totally turned into Mark Allen's accent, but did you say that it's already been approved somewhere?
Yeah, yeah. Starting point 2. So rather than employ somebody, he felt that the contract was the better option.
Thank you, Richard.
Question.
Oh yeah, Councillor Manning.
Yes, let's go back to the Property and Assets Committee point 5 about the stepped approach to hiring, which we agreed. I just wondered if that had been communicated to the potential hires, because I had somebody approach me today to ask whether what the town council's position was.
I don't know whether we've chased up whether that's been done or not, but it's a decision that's been made, so that's what stands. But I'll chase up that it gets communicated.
Thank you. And the other one from starting point 3 is that the responsible finance officer probation period was completed.
We have to ratify that recommendation from Councillor Oakton about prices for the matron.
So what, on that one, what I'm asking, please, Your Worship, is, because that will be an amendment to the markets policy and procedure the full council has adopted. So yes, if I can have a proposer and a seconder for that one, please, so that I can amend the markets policy and procedure to include the rate for a table in the atrium, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. So a proposer and a seconder for that one? Councillor Manning? Councillor Jones, all those in favour? Do you voting yes, Councillor?
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry,
thank you.
yeah.
Okay, unanimous.
I am aware.
Thank you. Okay. You've noted. Item 18, updates from advisory committees and consider any recommendations for this evening.
There hasn't been any advisory committees.
Okay, thank you, that's easy. Unitary Councillor? Sorry, Councillor.
I have to keep on with this, and I know that we have in our within our earshot this evening two possible county councillors, but I am also very vexed to say that we haven't got a county councillor in attendance this evening. I think it's. I don't think it's very good on some people's behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, quick question, which is slightly relevant. Obviously, we have got unitary council elections upcoming. I was just going to ask, what happens to Councillor Cottle's town councillor?
Right, the vote for that is on the 6th of November, so it's 2 weeks after. Okay. So 23rd is Somerset Council, 6th of November is 2 weeks after that for that's only for St Edmund's Ward. Sure. And so far there's 2 councillors, candidates. Councillor Cousins? there's two candidates, Joseph Osborne and Emmett King, and that's it.
Okay.
So one
Thanks for that.
one choice. That's correct.
Your Worship, presumably the period of time when the vacant seat appeared on the county council was the same as when it appeared on this town.
Well, sure.
And there is a period of time in which the members of the public, 10 voting electoral registered people, can request the election. Or two. But would it not have been prudent for Somerset Council to have waited the full period of time to see whether or not a council election was being requested for town and county before setting the date of either election, so that we don't now have two elections within weeks of each other that are going to cost the taxpayer money?
Yeah.
Could we
formally, will tell you what happened.
Okay, but could we formally not express some measure of concern about that to the electoral officer at Somerset? Because it strikes me that this is a complete and utter waste of money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I queried this with Somerset Council because I was initially told that they had planned to hold both elections on the same day. So to call an election for a Somerset Council seat only requires 2 letters to be written to Somerset Council. And in the law, there is a period of time between receiving those 2 letters and when Somerset Council has to set the date and call the election for that seat. For the Town Council, they have to receive 10 letters. So what happened was the 2 letters were received very quickly, and Somerset Council, within the law, had to then call the election within a window of time for the Somerset Council seat, but they hadn't yet received 10 letters that were then received for a Town Council seat at that point, and then between receiving those 10 letters and the date that had been set for the Somerset Council seat, there was not enough time to do all of the work that the electoral division need to do and have all polling cards, etc., sent out to people. So that's why we've ended up with elections on 2 separate dates.
Okay, thank
Thank you. You did ask.
One point of clarity, Your Worship. I wonder whether any agency in the town that may be listening to this meeting could get their act together and get all 10 of their mates to write the letters at the same time.
Thank you, thanks for the questions. Any updates from the councillors or representatives to outside of politics? I can say a little about the town deal. So on Thursday of this week, we've got a town deal board meeting. So I'll be wise after that event. So the fact that St Dunstan's house is complete means that 3 of the projects and the 3 town centre ones are all complete. So there'll be snagging just for next year, but we've sort of done a big chunk of it. Councillor Cousins?
Thank you. I'm under the impression, and I didn't check, but that I am this council's representative, or one of them, to the Somerset Association of Local Councils. So I went to, they had an excellent meeting in the canal side last Friday, was it? I think Friday before, 2 Fridays ago, and with a conference on just what amazing things are happening around the council, including a community engagement review by Somerset Council, which I think is absolutely tremendous. And it was a well-packed meeting, and lots of information was given out. I know that our deputy clerk was there too. I'm not sure whether, Katie, there will be any feedback from you to the council on anything relevant to Glastonbury Town Council. But my thought was that certainly the kind of community engagement that we're pursuing through St Dunstan's House and the health and wellbeing is on message with the general feel of the council at the moment. And I think that we should endeavoured to highlight this to public health who are within Somerset. And I suspect that Jack is already on the case with this, but it would be, I think, very useful to invite the head of public health who was there at the meeting for Somerset to come and visit, if they haven't done already, St Nelson's House.
Yeah, to go back a step to the time deal, with regard to Bride's Mound, the issues concerning the disabled path seem to be resolved with satisfaction, I hope, of most people. And the roundhouse build is delayed by a couple of weeks, but we're hoping that it's going to open at some point in November. So that should be the next one. I think the next one on the list.
Thank you. Yeah, I walked up the multi-user path and thought, oh, this is good. Tried an apple that was just about to fall off. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
Just a couple of chain events coming up over the next few weeks. Our next meeting is a breakfast meeting on the 11th of November, but we're going over the water for that one, so it's a pinky sky now. But the meeting after that is on the 18th in Glastonbury at 7 p.m. A talk on economics and finance by Monaghan's, and it's at Monaghan's, which is not far from Tesco and Monaghan's.
Across the bridge. Thank you. Oh, okay. Right, well, there's announcements. You probably know that we had a very successful meeting with Her Imperial Highness Princess Esther Selassie. So she wanted a low-key, informal event. A lot of people came forward to sort of deliver the things that she asked to see. So she asked to go to the Abbey, so Janet Mellon and Rogers did that. Asked to go to the Tribunal. Tim Hopkinson was there. Father Mark Moran, the new Catholic priest, he opened the church and showed icons and tapestries and all of that. Then we went to Magdalene, Aunt House, and St Martha's Chapel. And Liz Pearson was there, then up to Chancellor, Joanna Tyler, and Alison Scobie, and looked at the Blossom Circle up by Jeffrey Ashley's mentioned at the talk, and she was absolutely delighted. As this council agreed, I presented her with the tea manual, and she was deeply moved. She's written a very beautiful thank you letter, which I believe is on the town council website. And the prime sort of thing, how it all sort of happened, was because of Lalibela and our trimming. And so we'd already had these conversations a little while before. We did try and find Dr. Hugh Sharp, but didn't have a response from him. And Neil Johnson, who's the guy who took over as chair of Lalibela Trust, he was in Greece, but he sent us a sort of reply and thank you. And he's still doing work in Ethiopia. So anyway, the upshot of it is, when Princess Esther got home, she spoke to people in Ethiopia and Lalibela, and so I think that training process will get reinvigorated after sort of sitting there for some years. So all in all, it was very appreciative. So thank you. Some of us went to the opening of the Shoemakers Museum in Parks Village. So you know the Alfred Gillett Trust in the mansion. So that's now open. So there's that really was a wonderful evening. And their arrangement is they've got a good cafe and everything else. You buy a ticket and it's valid all year. And so again, that's open to people now. St Dunstan House, we've already mentioned. Schools and playgrounds, we've set up a working group and we'll start looking at that. And I've already been to 2 of the schools and spoken to the children and asked them, what would you like in your play parks? So there's young users. And I've got an appointment to go to St Dunstan School next Wednesday, I think, or Thursday. So Amanda Marshall has been very sort of even there. So she's sort of gone and made the connections with the various ones. So they're very excited. Apparently, St Benedict School is already sending drawings of what they would like in their playgrounds. So all in all, I think we're doing very well. Still early days, but we've got budget for play equipment. Anytime we go anywhere, we're looking at the play equipment. I went to Compton London on Sunday and thought, oh, that's very nice play equipment, just like we enjoy. So yeah, there's a lot of progress. But the schools are starting to sort of engage, which is good for us. However, okay, correspondence. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering about the etiquette of chairman and mayors and whatever, because I note that a chairman wore a chain and he started some thing going up the tour.
I can explain all about that.
Ah, good. Thank you.
So what happened was on the day we were having Princess Esther here, 3 guys in medieval knight suits wanted to run up the tour a few times and raise money for King Arthur's Round Table.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it because I was meeting the princess. Councillor Price couldn't do it because she was also with me. The town crier couldn't do it because he was lecturing at a college. And they insisted that they wanted someone to sort of start the run. And so in the end, Scarlett Sheffer and I thought, wonder if Brian Knickerbocker, the chair of Street Parish, would do it. And he did. And so we were very grateful for that. Because that's how it happened. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, I had somebody bring to my attention as well that very distressed because they said that they had asked for any councillor from this council to be there.
That isn't what we were told.
Well, that's maybe we need to look at the original letters or whatever. But they felt very upset that somebody from Street had come. And when I said I knew nothing about it, then the letter hadn't been circulated to anybody else. They were agreed.
Now, originally it was an invitation that came to me, and then because I'd already got the other inventors and I couldn't, then they asked about the deputy mayor and said no, she couldn't either. And we thought about the town crier, but all they wanted was someone to go and start the run. And so in the end, we couldn't find anybody else. And so,
well, I'm thinking that if you didn't ask the rest of the council, you didn't really look, you won't find anything.
Okay.
It just seemed peculiar to me that a neighbouring council started something off in Glastonbury.
It was actually Streets, King Arthur's Round Table, but that's neither here nor there. But we were grateful and we appreciate the fact that he stepped in. Thank you, Councillor.
Just like to thank you for all the hard work I've done over the past month, especially with the presentation of the Kia level. Also like to thank you for inviting Brian Knickerbocker to do the honours, since he only lives just around the corner. And I'm a bit disappointed he hasn't stood for election at St Edmunds.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. When you say King Arthur's Round Table, is that between the Round Table and the charitable sort of thing?
Yeah, but it says something like the Knights of Streets, King Arthur's Round Table. Whoever it is, it's the Knights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Yeah, it's not the Rotary Club. So
that sort of thing.
No. Yeah,
I would say as a former round table, I'd say round table isn't Rotary.
Yeah. How dare you.
Okay. Right. Correspondence, communications and announcements. So the town clerk very kindly sent a letter.
Yeah, I'd like to make some points
Yeah,
about
please
this
do.
letter.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, I would expect my name to be redacted when it's tabled. But I had this letter in on the 26th of September, and I asked the Deputy Town Clerk to ensure that it was distributed to the Town Council, and she said And she said that when Connor came back on Monday, they would look at it. I received no communication back about it. I wrote to Connor on the 6th of October, asking why it hadn't been distributed, and received no response to that either. So I'm a little curious as to why this is the first time that it has been put in front of councillors, because it's a very important issue.
Well, I was just going to wait for Connor to reply to that before I say anything.
So just on, between periods of illness, being away and focusing on St Vincent's House, my email inbox has swelled and I haven't seen your email, Councillor Osborne, so that's why you haven't had a response. If I'd been able to have a chance to read it, you would have had a response. On not circulating them in a more timely manner, I can't particularly comment. I don't know whether Katie might want to give an update, but I know that essentially a position from the council is being requested. You couldn't have a position if it was circulated over email and everyone just had a discussion reply all. So if you want to go back to the contents that are in this letter, then actually this is the right place to consider it rather than it just being discussed over an email thread. But I don't know whether Katie has any more comments, but there are reasons why it hasn't been circulated by me.
Yeah, I can only add that it was, I thought that I'd said that we would check, Connor and I would discuss it. By the time I had a chance to discuss it with the town clerk, we'd received the second letter, which is why I made the decision to put this to you this evening.
Councillor Henderson,
well, there's a lot of misinformation on this letter. It's not really worth the paper it's written on. There's no way that they were negotiating with the owner. I've spoken to the owner a couple of times. The fact that it's supposed to be a community-based, place of doing good is a joke. We've had so much trouble down there. It's unbelievable. The court order was issued yesterday. We've got a fortnight to get out, I believe. And whilst I'm aware that such a place should be available, exactly, for vulnerable people and homeless, etc., and we know we need something like that. This certainly isn't the answer, and I think the sooner that it's resolved, the better, really.
Yes, I remember in the days when we had the Robert Barton Trust in Silver Street, and homeless people had a place where they could wash their clothes, have a shower, have a cuppa, and it provided a really good service, and it was well used. I don't remember there being any great problems in terms of noise or disturbance. I'm sure there were some at some points, but it wasn't a problem. And I'm wondering whether this could actually be a spur to try to get something similar set up, because God knows it is needed. I mean, that's probably why this spot has happened, because it really is needed. Wrong place, as Steve says. Robert Barton Trust in Silver Street, it was a nice little back street, it wasn't going to disturb anyone, well, certainly not the owls in the Abbey, that's for sure. We have the Bedford Resource Centre, is that a possibility? Could we get something like the Robert Barton Trust, because it needs to be a body to run it. We can't run it. It has to be a charitable body like the Robert Barton Trust to run it. But could we maybe find a space that would be equivalent, where there is a shower, a washing machine, a laundry machine, whatever they call it. Cups of tea provided to help. That's what I would like to propose, because I see this as a spur. Homelessness is increasing across Britain. It's not just Glastonbury. I've got friends who tour and do gigs in different towns. They've just done a tour of Britain. They say that most of the towns they went to have got the problems that we've got of caravan dwellers and homeless people and so on. It's right across, but it's not just Glastonbury. But we need to look to those who are here, I think that compassion and caring, we've got our charter for compassion. I think that should be uppermost in our thoughts. Yes, we can decry the people and say, oh my God, they shouldn't live like that, they are slum dwellers and so on, but it's not their fault, it's part of our society. So to actually give help, like the food kitchens in St Ben's Church and United Reformed are actually doing a service, that maybe we could try to find a trust to do a similar service.
Thank you. Councillor Cousins?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was a trustee of Robert Barton Trust, and it was an extremely sad day for me when we had to close. We had come to this council for £10,000, which was the difference between us closing and us remaining open at the time. And when we closed, the headline in the paper was one of the statement from one of the councillors of this council, this very council, saying, "Good riddance to bad rubbish." That is clearly reflected in some way when the letter says, "A visible issue that the council has never successfully addressed." And whilst we might say, well, it's actually nothing to do with us and it's a responsibility of this agency or that agency or another agency, if we don't have a responsibility to the people who are here, who does? My feeling is that the lack of support from this council historically for these sorts of organisations is something that we should look at and review. This issue is not actually getting any better by itself. And if we ignore it or we hope that it will go away, it doesn't. In fact, what happens is without any support or organised support, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and that creates other issues for the town and the police and the residents to deal with. So my feeling is that this is, although this letter may be from a group that is attempting to do something but perhaps doesn't have the professional skills or capacity to deliver what it wants, it is, as Councillor Rowan Dougal says, it is a timely thing for us to see. I wonder whether, hand in hand with the provision that we are hoping to establish in St Dunstan's Health and Wellbeing Centre, that this council does think of it as something that it could work with. Now we have a new worker who's organising the Health and Wellbeing Centre. We could look at this and bring together all organisations that have a duty of care to the people who are on the streets here, to look at trying to come up with some way of addressing the situation. I'm conscious that when Robert Barton closed, the Elim Church in Wales took over provision, and some of the extremely skilled and experienced workers that Robert Barton Trust had, who knew just how to deal with difficult people and did this town an immense service that was never recognised. Elim took them on, but sadly now even Elim itself seems to have lost that sort of provision. It was being supported through many district council, I believe, at some point. So there's definitely a gap, and it's a gap whether or not people like the fact that Glastonbury attracts a lot of folk who need support. Just burying our head in the sand is not going to stop that fact.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, I understand what has just been said. I don't agree with a great deal of it. Having said that, I think that we need immediately to distance ourselves from this, because there is so much untruth in this, that, and it does say that the Glastonbury Council is supporting us. That is totally untrue. I've heard this outside only a couple of days, well, today I've heard it, and a few days earlier. We, as far as I'm aware, we are not supporting this. I do know the owner of the building, and I believe that he's not supporting it either, which it says in here he probably is. Probably, but the probable is a big word. Having said that, I think that what we've got to do is distance ourselves from this immediately. Thank you.
I know Robert Bartos very well as well because I'm actually in the premises that they used to have, and for a short while I was also their neighbour. One of the things that happened was that the Robert Bartos used to provide accommodation addresses for people, and I actually carried that on for about 2 years. Post coming in and filling it to even. I feel there's a definite need for something like Robert Barton Trust in the town. I think in the town, but not in the town centre. I think it needs to be where the need is. And I would suggest that out on the Beckery would be the ideal place. There's a number of places out there. Most of them are in a very small patch. And there's a lot of places I can think of in that area which would make an ideal location. But it's definitely something, and as Terry says, I think we should distance ourselves from this because this is just a revival. So that's the message to you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add that it's not just difficult people, it's also people in distress very often requiring these services. And I agree with my fellow councillors that this is a service that is desperately needed, but we can't support the process that these people have gone through in order to set out what they're doing. And I agree that we need to look at it as a council and find a solution, an alternative similar to Robert Barton Trust. No, we can't support this process.
Thank you. Okay. Any other correspondence, communications and announcements?
Just to announce to everybody that this Friday, on the 17th, we're holding our award ceremony for Glastonbury Bloom, and it would be nice to have some support from some councillors to come along and see what their residents have achieved.
Is it at 6:30 or 7?
It's 6:30, the doors open, it starts at 7.
Thank you. And
I'd like to give my apologies on my daughter's 50th birthday celebration. And I'm afraid that's not
Must be your sister, surely.
Thank you.
anything else, Katie? Okay. Any items for news release and or the quarterly newsletter? I'll just give one quick plug for the quarterly newsletter. So the next one is Saturday. So ideally, if anybody is writing bits, the end of this week would be very good, or let's say Monday next, I should read this. Councillor Cousins?
Your Worship, I saw the excellent sort of social media post from this council about the visit of Her Imperial Highness, but I'm not sure it was picked up by any of the newspapers. I wonder whether that is, it's not every day that this town is visited by an Imperial Highness, let alone somebody of royal descent, and I wonder whether we could issue to the newspapers, not just the Gazette and some series, but perhaps Western Daily Press as well, because I think it is actually quite a newsworthy event.
Yeah. I have just sent the town clerk a small piece about that visit to go in the Salary Run. If you come to the In Bloom downstairs on Friday, you'll learn what we did for In Bloom, and if we were lucky enough to get any awards. And then, of course, the third story, excellent story, is St Dunstan's House. You know, so we're not doing bad with good news. Any review actions arriving from this meeting?
Okay, so I've got to look into more information on the court result outcome on via the police report, and update for the earmarked reserves for the next meeting, to add DBS checks to the staffing agenda, and to source some training for councillors and staff.
Okay, thank you. Have you got anything on the phone? Thank you. Right. The date of the next board. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
also we need a distancing letter, can we? As a result of this meeting.
Of this letter,
Yes.
to say that we don't support it, is that what you're saying? Councillor Smith?
I would suggest that the distancing letter is a tautology.
Yeah.
Because no letter will be distancing.
That's the way I put it.
Well, a clarification letter then.
Okay.
What is on that?
Councillor Cullen.
It's just a point of order, but Samuel 3.1 says that any person speaking in this chamber, apart from itself, of course, or someone has been given leave to remain sitting, should stand when speaking. And I think that that's always applied to the clerks of this council previously, and I wonder whether Your Worship, that we could ask the clerks to stand when they speak, as we stand when we speak. I do note that if they don't wish to stand, the chair has the capacity to allow people to remain seated, but it has to be stated during the meeting.
Thank you. Noted, Councillor Cullen. The date of the next meeting, the next ordinary meeting, is the 11th of November, which happens to be Armistice Day. So if you're going to be at the Armistice stuff at the War Memorial, that will start at about 2:45. And then hopefully everybody won't be too tired and they'll